We're going to begin now. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Direct us, O Lord, in our thoughts, our words, and our actions, that they might begin with your inspiration and continue with your grace, and have their end bringing us closer to you. We ask this as we ask all things through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I hope you had some time for rest. I hope you had some time to maybe try to get some quiet. And I'm not sure if I'm torn between hoping you got quiet or hoping you didn't, because I'm a terrible person. But because then you'll pay more attention. I'm sorry, but at least here's the thing. If you didn't, then at least you understand that what we're talking about is not completely insane. Because if you have to struggle and you can't reach it, then clearly there's something there. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Kind of like how you... Look, I'm not a fan of some sports or some talents, but I can recognize talent when I see it. I'm not interested in doing it, and I don't want to say it really much, but at least you can say, well, that guy can do something better than I can do. Everybody get what I'm trying to say? So it's not like anyone can do it. Well, that's not true. I mean, I don't think it's particularly special or good or useful, but not anybody can do it. Well, the same. If silence was merely a matter of being quiet, that I think you've mostly done, or at least you tried, you had a chance to. But what I suspect you have found, if you tried, like let's say last night was a little bit rough, it was late, we started late, finished late. Today, this morning, you were up, you slept in, you're a little tired, fine. But this afternoon, you probably had a chance to at least try to be silent. And what you find is that if you want to descend from the world and just take the elevator down past all of the noise and the sensations of your body and just kind of be comfortable somewhere, and now you're inside. And you open the elevator doors onto whatever your heart looks like, and you find it's not empty, right? You're like, okay, I'm quiet now, I'm ready. And then you realize there's a whole Times Square worth of people inside your heart and in your mind. You're like, what is this? And now you're trying to figure out how to quiet them? Good. I'm not going to help you until tomorrow, because that way you're going to learn. You might figure it out. You probably have. I gave you a really big hint with wonder yesterday. If you just find things that you find full of wonder, you'll instantly quiet. Everybody is out instantly. And if you haven't, then there's another way to do it, the slower way. I'm going to let you struggle a little more. So what we're not going to do is solve that problem. What we are going to do, listen, what we're going to do now is big enough. All right, I deserve like Nobel Peace Prize, Augustine Prize, okay? Because we're going to deal with the problem that is easily the biggest problem in faith. Not our faith, all faith. The silence of God in the face of evil. There is nothing bigger. It's a struggle that philosophers have had before Christ, hundreds of years before Christ. If God exists, then he has to be some sort of powerful. And if he is powerful and there is evil, then why doesn't he stop the evil? It's so big, it's got its own name. Theodicy means defense of God, which is interesting because you should be able to say defense of God can mean a lot of things, but it only refers to defense of God in terms of evil. You with me so far? Okay. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm going to solve it because I'm amazing, but I'm going to keep that super secret. You guys, you got to be a priest to know about that stuff, so I'm sorry, I can't tell you. But what we are going to do, if Augustine can't solve it, then stop it. Okay? Stop it. You came to the wrong place. What we can do, though, is look at it, embrace it, and I think I can help you quite a bit. But before we get to it, you have to approach it the right way. If you approach something the wrong way, you've already started and you've already failed. So you got to start it the right way. So first, let's begin. The first type of the silence of God in the middle of suffering, I'm going to zoom the camera in real tight, just on you. Let's talk about the silence of God when you're dry in prayer life. The dryness in your prayer life. First, some of you are going to be very acquainted with this. We won't take a long time. Some of you are not. So I got to get a little bit into it. What is dryness in prayer? It is, in a sense, there's a lot of ways of describing it. The term dryness comes from many of the big saints of the church, especially Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Ignatius of Loyola. But even the early monks of the church called it dryness in prayer. And the reason they said that is because in the Bible, so often, especially in the Psalms, you refer to God's word being refreshing, like water. Because the people of Israel, right, live in the desert, so water is very important. So when you don't have God's presence, they call that dryness. You with me so far? That's just where the term comes from. But what is it? Well, it's a sense of, you could say it's one of a lot of things, but let's try it. No taste for spiritual things. Anything spiritual is just like, no. You do anything to do, you clean your house rather than pray. You do anything you dislike doing rather than pray. Then you're in spiritual dryness, okay? Emptiness is another word that people will use. I just feel empty. I just feel nothing. Another one is you feel like there's no connection. You speak to God, but no one's there. You're not even sure if there's someone on the other end, let alone he's not listening. You're not even sure if he's there. All of those are different ways of describing it, but in the end, that comes to spiritual dryness. That's what the term is when I use the term spiritual dryness. You with me so far? Okay, because now, what we're talking about, we can get into it. I'm not talking about, and this is important, spiritual dryness, and some of you is going to have a brand new idea. Spiritual dryness does not mean you're in sin. We often fall into sin when we're in spiritual dryness, but they're not the same thing. And the reason I want to separate those two is because one is a feeling, one is an action. And feelings are awesome, but they're just feelings. Actions are what define you. Okay? You can feel really good about humanity and kill people. There's plenty of people who are like that. Or feel like I'm a really good person. Al Capone famously said, well, I don't understand why you're arresting me when they arrested him. Famously, it was like, I don't understand. It's like, because you're Al Capone? You're still famous now. You've been dead almost 100 years, I guess. I don't know, whenever he died, whatever. It's coming up, got to be close. Or it certainly is in heyday. And we still know who you are? That's how bad you are. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So you can feel spiritual dryness. Whether or not you fall into sin, that's completely on you. I'm ready to help you with the part with God, but the part about you sinning if you're in spiritual dryness, well, and by the way, it's much easier to sin when you're in spiritual dryness because the devil hits you much harder. Because he knows you're in spiritual dryness. See, what I might be telling you is a new idea, what we're going to cover in the next few minutes, but I can guarantee you the devil's known this idea for a long time. And so when you're not in spiritual dryness, don't ever say spiritual wetness. That's awkward. Say anointing or something else. Don't say wet. No one says that. That's not a thing. If you say that, you're going to totally show that you're not part of the club. So don't ever say that, okay? You know when you say a phrase and you use it wrong, you're like, Like, new guy, stop saying it like that. Like, I use the internets all the time. You're like, old guy, stop, right? So, the same thing. You don't say spiritual witness. You say maybe you feel God's anointing or you feel God's presence, all right? When you're feeling that, the devil tends to pull away from you because he knows it's not really useful to attack you then because you're made of steel. Nothing's going to hit you. You're fine. You're like Superman. It's laughable. It's pathetic. Any attack he's going to throw you. But he also knows you will go into spiritual dryness. See, that's the thing you are probably not aware of, but he is. You think it's going to always be like this. This is awesome. And he's just going to wait. And when you're not looking, he's going to trip you because you're not going to realize it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So you've got to be aware that he knows more of the game than you do. And so if you're not aware of it, he's just going to wait you out. And then it'll win. So what causes it? Okay, I generally break it up into 3 causes. Really, 2 of them are connected, but they're still separate. I would say 3 separate causes. And then we're going to look at how to solve each one, okay? So first cause. This is the easiest one. This is the one most people think is what's causing their spiritual dryness if they just don't think God's a jerk. That sometimes happens. But if you do think that you might be responsible, then this is usually the reason you think. What is it? My own sinfulness. I'm a bad person. That's why I feel spiritually empty. And you might be right. I mean, that's one of the causes. Now, here's the thing. Sinning, or mortal sin especially, grave sin, right, may or may not cause spiritual dryness. But attachment to sin will cause spiritual dryness. There's a difference in what I just said. You can sin you can commit a mortal sin through a horrible weakness and bad choices in the middle of unlucky circumstances or unfortunate circumstances or whatever, and not necessarily immediately enter into spiritual dryness. You can go to confession, you can start over, and you're good. You get what I'm trying to say right now? But even if you're not in mortal sin, this is a killer. This is a detail. If you are attached to mortal sin, if you are even attached to venial sin, you can very quickly put yourself into spiritual dryness. What is the difference? Attachment doesn't mean you're doing it, but it does mean you're okay with it. You start self-justifying. That's classic. Well, I mean, you have to understand. Oh, no, I don't. And neither do you. You need to stop. Okay? And so that's where it becomes an issue. If you're sitting there going, well, I mean, but you have to understand that, you've already lost. Because the difference is, one is hurting. Think of a relationship with another person. Okay? I may offend or hurt you. And if I didn't mean to, this probably won't affect our relationship, especially if it's clear to you. Now, with God, everything's clear. So he knows. So he's not going to be offended too much. He's not going to pull away because he knows you just fell. But even if I haven't offended you, but I'm totally okay with offending you, well, why would you keep that relationship going very long anyway? You'd pull away. Now, in God's case, what's funny is the sun always shines. The sun always shines. It's just sometimes we open an umbrella and then complain about the darkness. So it's not that God doesn't love you. Every once in a while I get somebody who asks me, does God love the devil? The answer is yes. What? But he's bad. Yep. He opens an umbrella and he won't let the love touch him. But he's loved. Nothing that exists could exist without being loved by God. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Actually, you could call that a measure of God respecting the devil's free will. If you don't listen to me, you don't exist. Well, that's not really respecting anybody's free will. Do you get what I mean? Well, I don't like that, Father, only when it's not you. Imagine if when you sinned, you cease to exist. Lot less people everywhere. Like just everywhere. Even if you gave them a lead, you got like 24 hours, like that Timberlake movie with the clock on your arm. You go to confession, you got 24 hours to go to confession. And you start to, woo, lot less people, woo, lot less people. Or everybody's super saved, okay? But it's not. And so it's more along the lines of God doesn't pull away from you, it's just you just block his love. Your heart does. You're not aimed at him. If you're okay with offending someone, then your relationship with that person's already dead or hurting or dying, even if you haven't particularly hurt them. You get me so far? First cause of spiritual dryness is my own sinfulness. Because here's the thing. You can't choose no to God, but then still want the joy of his presence. That's not how that works. You can't. That's not how that works. That's what Adam and Eve did, right? They wanted to be like gods, right? That's literally what the serpent tempts them with. Bless you. It's literally what the serpent tempts them with. They want to be like God, but they don't want God around. Or they want to get it without God's permission. Or they want to get it behind God's back. They literally try to go behind God's back. They actually try to hide from him, right? Do you see? So you can't choose that without it. Because in the end, it's all about the relationship with God. Second cause of spiritual dryness is avoidance of some topic that God needs to cover with you. God needs to talk about this with you. You need to do this in your spiritual life. And you're like, nah. They're like the little kids who don't want to eat. They're like, yeah, and they're like, and they close their mouth. Well, then nothing's going in. You see why I said it's connected to sinfulness? Because it is connected. It's self-caused. But it still matters. And I separate it because it can be something different. You can say, I'm not aware of attachment to sin, and I'm not in spiritual sinfulness, and I'm not doing it. So it's not that, Father. And I go, okay, well, is there something you need to talk to God about? You need to deal with God about. He wants to talk to you about it. And you're blocking him. You don't want to deal with it. Well, then how can you have, again, it goes back to the basic point. Then how can you have a real relationship? You know how it's like. It's like when you go out with somebody that you got to talk about something, but you avoid it. So you talk about everything else but that. I call it dancing. I'm really good at dancing. Because as a priest, people like to dance all the time. It's amazing. People are like, so how's things? So how's the Yankees? I'm like, oh, awesome. How are things? And the Giants, right? I mean, whew, and we will talk and talk and talk and not say anything. I'm really good at dancing. The reason I got good at it is because as a survival method. Otherwise, I think I'd never talk to anyone because they'd run away. So I can dance for a long time. I'll wait. I have the only product to sell that you need. You will come to me, customers. I don't have to go to you. Father, that's mean. I know. That's part of me that's not saved. But I will wait. Also, I'm very patient. Also, I find that pain is a really good teacher. Pain teaches clarity. You're like, I tried this and my life stinks. So can we talk about it? Yeah, been waiting on you. What's going on? Let's go. Let's go for a we'll talk. I don't mind. You can't do that forever. And so if God needs to cover something with you, then, and you're fighting or avoiding or distracting from it, well, then your relationship with him will dry up because it's not a real relationship. I don't care if you don't respect me, so I don't mind keeping a relationship with you even when you're just like being fictitious with me. I don't mind. My job is to save your soul. On a serious level, I'm here to save your soul, so I don't care how long I have to take to fake with you because I'm very, 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 very patient. And I'm pretty good at my job. So I'll just wait and sit at your door of your heart and pick at the lock very quietly until I get it open. And it might take me months or years. That's fine. I got time. I hope you do. I don't know. I'll wait. But God? No, you don't disrespect him. Why would he tolerate it? I do it because for God's sake. There is no sake beyond God. It withers you. It's not even like God does that to you. You do it to yourself. You wither yourself. He's the source of life. I am the vine. You are the branches, he says in John's gospel. You cut it. The vine stays alive, but the branches dry out. You did that. It wasn't him. You put the umbrella up. And you say, why is it so dark? You with me so far? Second cause. These two, I often tell people, look, good news is bad news is that situation. Bad news is you did it. That hurts. Good news is you can fix it because you did it. Hey, how do you fix it? Well, simple. Common sense and reason will tell you. If it's serious sin, go to confession. If it's attachment to serious sin, then go to confession and maybe you really got to work it out. Bring that up and be like, I really have a hard time saying it's wrong. I know I'm wrong, I guess. Fine, start with that. God is so patient that he lets you go to confession and receive absolution even when you're not fully sorry. If you just are afraid of going to hell, you can receive absolution. Did you know that? It's called attrition. It's not contrition, but it's attrition. You can still go to confession, receive absolution. If you're like, sorry because of the repercussions, try that with your wife or husband or girlfriend or a friend. I thought I could do better. I tried. I couldn't. Honey. So see how that works out for you. See how that works out for you. And no one else would be like, get out of here. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. With God, he loves you so much that he's like, okay, don't worry, kid. Happens. Come on. And he gives you another shot. I'm always confused by people who say, God is mean. I have a hard time with church because God is mean. And I go, what church did you ever go to? Or did you just make it up from what you've seen on TV and you remember from the once or twice that you went to church? Because any message of God's mercy, I don't know anything that's more merciful than that. I certainly am not. I don't think anybody is. Shouldn't be. If you were the other side of that relationship, I'd say to you, what are you doing taking them back? And I hope you would give that other person that advice as well. I'd be like, hey. They literally looked at you and were like, they're not really sorry, but they try to do better and they can't, and they're afraid of being out in the dark and they want to stay with you. Yeah, no. I'm driving over to your house right now. No, we're going to throw them out together. Wait for me. It'll be fun. Like, no, you shouldn't. That's the advice you should give that person because that's not the kind of respect or love that you should. Love is meant to be giving. You saw that reflection on friendship that we had, and it's meant to be a certain way, right? Francis de Sales. So you got to work that out with God. If it's avoiding of the topic, well, that's even easier. Stop avoiding the topic. How? Go sit and talk to him. I don't know how. Go get a Bible. Go look at the Ignatius of Loyola style of reflection in Lectio Divina and sit with him and talk to him about it. Well, it's going to take a while. So? What? Yeah, investment of time is an acceptable price. It's okay. But solve the problem. Get your spiritual life flowing again. Get it moving. It'll help you. And you'll feel the reality there. Now the third form of dryness in prayer. God allows it. So the first two are self-caused. The third form is caused by God. God allows dryness. Why would he do that? When does he do that? It happens when you move closer to God. It can happen. Okay, so if I was in the hallway downstairs of this retreat house, and you know where the snack room is, down that like the slightly lower section than where the dining room is, still dark. And it had just snowed and it was bright and sunny. So it's the opposite of what it is right now. Just imagine everything different outside these windows. Other than that, okay? And then I went outside from inside. I would not be able to see for a couple seconds. I would not be able to see. It's called snow blindness. It's not a serious condition. It's a couple seconds until your eyes get used to it. Once your eyes get used to the extreme amount of light, you actually can see just fine. It's a lot of light because the sun is shining, but it's also reflecting off the snow right into your eyeballs. You with me? It's not that there's no light, it's that there's too much and your eyes aren't used to it. Well, the same. If you move closer to God, sometimes what happens is you don't understand. Because you're so used to relating to God at a certain level that you moved up and your eyes, your spiritual eyes aren't ready, so they can't handle it. So they struggle. Okay? Caused by God. It's not because he wills it, like, I want to do this. Simply because you're closer to him and you can't handle it. At first. You'll be all right. How long? This is the problem. At least half of you listening to this, whether in person or on audio listeners, are going to go, that's me. I'm a saint, and I just can't see God because I'm a saint. Okay. That's awesome. I'm glad to have been in your presence. However, understand that comes, one, it's ridiculously rare. Just so we're clear, statistically speaking, you know when you say that, it means in terms of percentages, it's like 0. So stop it, okay? But if it is, I have news for you. It takes a long time. Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, we're going to hang out with her today and tomorrow a little bit. Was it 40 years, 50 years that she didn't feel the presence of God? So understand what level we're talking about here before you're like, that's me, I'm a saint. Thank you, I feel better. Oh my gosh, I didn't know. Oh, I'll just leave now. Cool beans. See you in 40 years. But you'll persevere, right? Now, how do you know whether, and how does it stop? You can't. It's not caused by you. You can't solve it. That's the other news, okay? But in the end, the solution to all of them is the same, all three. Pray, listen, and wait. Pray, listen, and be patient. Pray, if you got to move that out, listen to what he's guiding you, and be patient. If you've already solved the first two, then be patient, okay? If it is the third one, that comes with, some serious burden, okay? But I would propose to you that it's worth you listening. God doesn't forget about people. Think of Martha and Mary, the ones we spoke about in the last talk. God doesn't forget about you. If your interior life is okay, you're doing all right. By the way, one of the ways to tell is look at your virtues. Are you being a jerk? Are you still petty about traffic? Or people who are smelly on the train when you sit next to them? Then it ain't the third one. Okay? Yeah, I know. People are like, bruh, you got gassed, right? I just let that right out. Are you still mean about people? You still got smart comments to people when like your relatives, your family, or the people, co-workers, and they do something, you go, good job, bruh. Then it's not you. Because the people who are in that third condition are working and living. Mother Teresa founded the Missionaries of Charity while she was in spiritual dryness, in spiritual darkness. Founded easily the most famous religious order in the world right now. Founded it when she got nothing. That's heroic virtue. What we say about saints, heroic virtue. You with me so far? So, yeah, it might be you, but I would just let that rock. Just, it's cool. Doesn't matter. Still, confession, prayer, waiting is really your answer anyway. Got me? Okay, that's the first kind of silence in the midst of suffering. That's silence of God when you're suffering. Now, this is not about suffering, but I do want to answer this because it's going to matter in a little bit. Silence of Christ in the Eucharist. The silence of Jesus in the Eucharist. That's not your suffering, but it'll matter in a moment. So if you want to call it a subsection B as opposed to regular section B. I just wrote B, section B, but whatever. Like little b or something, I don't know, whatever. Silence in the Eucharist. Why do I say that? Because if you want to go to the presence of God, you can walk right over. It's only a few steps away and stand in his presence. And yet you might be praying. And now let's say you got past what I said the first night, and this morning where you're like, okay, so God, you don't hear God's voice the way I'm listening to your voice right now, Father. But I know now how to hear it in my heart. I know how to hear it in my prayer life, or at least I think I do. Let's do this. And you go over there and you don't hear anything. Why? Well, Christ is perfectly silent in the Holy Eucharist. That's obvious. Go and sit in the chapel and listen after this conference if you don't believe me. What I would propose to you is he is only silent because of the way we're listening. It's what I said on the first night in the first talk, which is that there are ways of hearing, there are sound waves, that we are not built to hear, or we lost the ability to hear. We have to adjust to hear it, right? So like you hear about bats or you hear about, whales, they make these sounds, some of them we can't hear. And then we have certain equipment and then we can hear. We can hear space, right? It sounds like loud, static kind of a thing. And, but it's very special kind of machines that we have to do, the scientists, to build it so we can understand it. And they kind of translate it into the noise that we can hear. It's not really auditory, no, it's actually silent, but They make it into noise so that we can understand it. God speaks. I think it's not the way we speak, and it's not the way we hear most of the time. Now, why doesn't he do that? Why doesn't he just show up? Why doesn't the sun rise one day and Jesus' face is on it and he's like, what up? I'm real. Hey, everybody, look over here, look over here, look over here, look over here, and then disappear. If he just did that, half the world, at least, right, the sun, half the world would just believe in God. True, but God's a gentleman. So he allows you to choose. And if he appeared to you clearly, you would have no choice in the matter. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I know sometimes in a moment of frustration, you're like, just say something and I'll know. But then you won't have choice anymore. Think about the saints that had visions and realize how you don't want to be one of those people. Juan Diego or any of the Fatima kids, right? Or any of the saints of any of the visions, of Lord's. Because think about the burden put on their life for the rest of their life. 11 of the 12 apostles died early, martyred, sometimes tortured. Definitely not comfortable. And the one who did live to old age was tortured, just lived to old age. He's made of hard stuff. St. John. To see and walk with God costs something because then he can ask more of you. Because then you know. You get what I'm trying to say? It's the same reason I treat certain people differently, right? You know me, so no, I'm not going to tolerate certain things that I'll tolerate from other people because I don't know me. I have a right to do that because you know better. You get me? The more you know, the more you're responsible for. Before you go, just tell me. And I go, can you wait till I leave the room when you ask him for that? Because I don't want to be there for that. I like being in the, he don't know no better category. When I get to heaven, I want him to be like, he didn't know no better. I'd really be happy to be on that line, wherever that line is. He's a gentleman. But also because it's a vertical relationship. You should approach properly. You do that for everyone else. I said this on Friday night. Someone goes to introduce you to their family and you dress like a bum and you look like a bum and you act like a bum, unless the family's cool with bumness, then maybe it's the opposite, right? You show up all hoity-toity and the family's like super relaxed people, then, they're going to look at you and go, you need to change. You can't dress like that. That's going to, that's my family. They're important to me. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You, when you approach someone, have to adjust to them. And this is now where we're starting to get into, when we get to silence and just regular suffering, we'll see. The approach matters. How do you approach him? It's a vertical relationship, ladies and gentlemen. He is above, we are below. But Jesus is my friend. Yeah. Like the cardinal could be my friend. Or the Pope can be my friend. But like times a million. Yeah, he's my friend, but I'm not going to do your mom jokes. Like, no matter how friendly I was with him. I'd just be like, nah, you might not take it that well. I'm going to go ahead and think he won't take it that well. I'm just going to go ahead and not do that. You can have a conversation with him once you're approaching him, and then you can listen and you can speak, but you have to get rid of all your illusions, all your pretense. That's why silence, like I said at the very beginning, is so clean and so important. You can't go there and be like, so I remember a guy sending me recently, a gentleman at Daily Mass came to me and said, you know what, Father, I want to approach God. I'm just going to be like, why did you let this happen? And I just thought, what? He said, and I was like, okay, do me a favor. Whatever you ever heard from me, whatever you know about me, up to and including my name, forget it and remember this. On the day you step into eternity, please don't do anything you're thinking of. Shut up. That may save your soul. And he looked at me, I was really serious. He was like, wait, what? He was half joking. I wasn't. I was like, nope. Who are you? He's going to look at you and go, you only exist because I chose, and you're going to come to me with complaints? Are you insane? Would you walk over? Those are the people that tell off, authority figures and then get in trouble and they go, I don't understand. And you're like, well, because I don't know what's working up here. Some of your gears were off. You must have forgotten the appropriate relationship. You might have had that happen to you. Someone approaches you with the inappropriate attitude and they look at you. You just kind of want to look, I'm sorry. I can close the door on you and throw you out, right? You, especially if it's a work-related reality. Now take that and multiply it times infinity and then go, okay, now go walk into God with that attitude and see how that works. What? Is there a right way to approach? I'm sorry, but I don't like it. Like is really not important. What you think of God, ladies and gentlemen, means nothing. What means everything is what God thinks of you. And that's not Catholic. That's anyone who believes in any God, because there's no other way to have a God. It's a God. be careful that the Church of Nice has not infected your brains too much. And you're like, no, we're just going to be cool. We're like, whoa. Just sit and reason. I'm not asking you to believe me at all. Sit and reason to yourself and then ask yourself if that makes sense. I'm not asking if you like it. I'm asking if it's right. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Doctors say I got to be more careful about my salad eating and everything. I don't like it, but they might be right. I can countenance the fact. They're obviously wrong. But I can countenance, let's be clear. But I can countenance the idea. I can approach it. But for you to say like, no, I don't like that. I don't care. This is the biggest moment of life of history where I don't care matters. I don't care. It's about what God thinks of you. So how you approach him does matter. But I wouldn't say, I don't want to get all fire and brimstone here. Why would you want to have a relationship with somebody like that? I want to meet you and I want you to do everything I said. That's not a relationship. That's a slave. Some people have a slave relationship with God. And not in the right way, if we're going to pick one. At least I'd rather be God's slave. God didn't do that. So God messed me up in my life once, so I don't pray anymore. Oh, you must be a joy with your wife and kids. Honey, the dinner's wrong. Get out. Look, I would do that to my kids and my wife. Then why would you do that to God? Really? That seems like a good idea to you? Not because of the threat, although that's there, but how about just because, what kind of relationship is that? What does that make you? It makes you a monster. Like a monster in the real, like scary old-timey sense from stories when we were kids. You only allow people in your life that do what you want. That's a monster. I don't know if I'm getting my point clear, but it's really important. So is it? I don't know. You can shake or nod your head. What I'm trying to say is how you relate to God really matters, and it says a lot about you. Forget about God. Forget that God is all powerful and anything else that can happen in eternity. You know what? Let's drop that. Just even relating to a child, do you want to relate to a child that way? Hey, we all tempted for it, right? We all tempted with it, but in our heart of hearts, I think we know that's a horrific person to be. I don't do this because I don't like it. Oh my God. Toddlers can be awful people because they're like that. But we allow that because they're toddlers. Their brain, right here, this part, is not developed yet. Teenagers get to that again. It's not their fault. There's a lot of hormones that develop this part of the brain, and this part takes about 10 years to catch up. No kidding. If we just didn't send people to prison until 25, there'd be nobody in prison. We drop because a lot of people get into the prison system because they're in a really bad choice age. If we could just take all boys and put them all in prison, at 15 to 20, and then let them out, there'd be nobody in prison. Because it's just bad choices because your brain is not working right. It's not fully developed yet. It's not. It's 25 or so. It's when it develops. Just look it up if you don't believe me. And so understand that that's what makes those things awful people. But to do that willingly as an adult makes you an awful person by choice? Oof. So you have to sit with God, and he's silent in the Eucharist. I propose he's speaking quite a bit, but I think you have to listen the right way. Well, where do you listen to God? Well, where do you go to listen to God? Where did the whole Bible and the whole last talk go to listen to God? The desert. Well, Father, I got a journey, I got to travel somewhere? No. Interior desert. You have to have a quiet place in your heart, and it's the only real place you control. Come on, you've not been to a restaurant and you got all hyped about it and it's closed? Or you got all excited and they don't have that? Or you go to a place and you go and the museum is closed or something. Come on, you've never been there? It happens all the time. You go, oh, this is going to be awesome. You hype it up in your head, or you hype it up to another person. That's even worse. And then it's closed. You're like, journeying is never going to solve your problem. Plus, let's be honest, you go travel. Some of you travel for your spiritual wellness. And then you get there and then you pull out your phone and talk to the people you didn't travel with, because that's really where your heart is. You didn't leave here. Your heart's still in wherever you're from. And you want to share it with them. Let it go. Let it behind you. Leave it behind you. Uncuff yourself and then walk forward. Walk forward clean, clear, naked, and empty. And then let yourself be filled by the place, if you're going to do that. But you don't have to. Journey downward into your heart. Blessed Elizabeth of the Trinity has that great phrase she sat and prayed with for forever. Zacchaeus, come down, I mean to speak with you. When Jesus is walking, and Zacchaeus is a short guy, so he climbs a tree to see Zacchaeus. He's a tax collector, and he's a dirtbag, apparently. And so he climbs down, he goes, and Jesus comes up under the tree, looks up and says, Zacchaeus, come down. I mean to stay at your house this evening. And Zacchaeus climbs down. And people, why I say he's a dirtbag? Because everybody goes, Zacchaeus, ew, that guy. And he says, I will pay back everybody I've ever stolen from double. And Jesus smiles and says, salvation has come to your house, Zacchaeus. And he goes and he eats with Zacchaeus. So it's kind of like Jesus poked him into being a good man. He was interested in Jesus, so there was something there. But Jesus poked him. Blessed Elizabeth of the Trinity, her whole theology is called the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, where you just climb down, right? But don't climb down a tree. Climb down into your heart. From your head, let go. Climb down into your heart. He means to eat with you this evening. So go primarily in your heart to the true desert and encounter him. The monks of the early church learned this because they went off into the desert, the hermits. The hermits went off into the desert and said, I'm going to find God. And they found the devil and they found God. And then they realized, I can't be a Christian if I don't have people to be Christian to. You actually have to be a Christian to someone. Like there's an object of Christianity. Like it's not just, I'm going to be a good person. To who? I'm going to treat people well. I need a person to treat well. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I need poor to feed. I need lonely and sick and thirsty and all that bit, you know? And so they went off and they're like, oh, come back. And so they made the monasteries, the Cenobites, where they lived in community. They kept silent most of the time. They realized silence is important, but they'd meet so that they could serve each other. Because they realized, well, this is not going to work. You can't be a Christian to no one. Plus, even when you go off, temptation follows you. You can't. And so some would be hermits. So they would have a community, and then you have some who go off and are hermits. They live on their own. But even most hermits come in once a week for Sunday Mass. Why? So that they can share with each other, and they can make sure that they can be kind to each other. Right? You need a person to be kind to. Everybody with me so far? And so where are you going? Here in your heart. Now if you do that and you get comfortable, if you learn how to speak to God, if you learn how to return to Adam and be ad oration, ad ora, mouth to mouth, face to face with God, now you're strong enough for the next two topics, which is now the evil and suffering that we usually think of when I say God is silent in the face of evil. I started with dryness and you're like, that's not evil. Well, it's evil. Some level. We move to the silence of the Eucharist. No, now we can get to the evils that we talk about. Death, suffering, disease, pain, earthquakes, murder. You know that stuff? Now we can do it. But you have to have the right mindset. So now let's go through it. There's two types of evil. Generally speaking, most philosophers and most theologians will break it down into two types. They'll say what they call natural evil and moral evil, or innocent evil and true evil. I don't know, the innocent evil never really caught on because it's a weird thing to say innocent evil. But so natural evil is a little bit better. And moral or true evil. What is the difference? Natural evil is an evil that is not directed. There is no malice behind it. It is built into creation. Moral evil is chosen. Okay? Everybody with me? I'm going to explain them now, but those are the two we're going to look at. Now, what's natural evil? We are on a mountain right now. It's beautiful. Sunrise, by the way, is facing the front of the retreat house. Sunset is toward the back. We'll see a little bit of the sunset a little later. Today we're not going to see much because the sun's kind of hanging out, taking a day off. But you know what I mean. On a clear day, not tomorrow either, by the way. I already looked it up. Sorry. Another day, come back. You see mountains, you see valleys, you see canyons, you see cliffs, you see rivers, you see all the beauty. The way that exists is because you have to have earthquakes. And you know what I'm saying is correct, you just maybe hadn't thought of it that way. Because the system that produces that has to produce everything. To make a mountain rise, something else is falling and something else is shifting, and maybe people live there, and that's what an earthquake is. Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's what's called natural evil. That because existence is physically limited, and anything that is physical is by definition limited, because you can't exist everywhere, that would be God. To be on any level physical means you have to exist. That means that there's where you are not. And where you are not means that then there's going to be repercussions. That got really philosophical, but you kind of follow it, I hope? Yes? No? Okay, because that matters. I'll give you more examples to help, okay? Rain. We have a rainy day today and tomorrow. Snow. Last year we had a blizzard on Saturday. Blizzard. We couldn't see outside the window. I thought it was beautiful. All I thought was going to hurt to drive home. It didn't. Cleared up, and it was a really sunny day to go home. But breeze. Come here in the summer, and it is a beautiful place to come in the summer. Or in like May, you have a gentle breeze, because we're high up, so you have a gentle breeze hitting us. Okay? Clouds. On a beautiful, clear day when you see just some billowy, fluffy white cotton candy clouds, all of those things exist because of pressure and temperature. But that also has to produce hurricanes and tornadoes. You can't have one without the other. Floods, those come one from the other because you can't have them. They're a closed system. Things have to happen. And where there's rain one place means there's not rain somewhere else. You have drought. You get what I'm trying to say? That's what's called natural evil. Okay? The most famous example that everybody gives, most philosophers will give, I didn't give yet, is this one. Lions have to eat. Something's got to be eaten. Natural evil. You get what I mean? Okay? It stinks, but then you don't have lions. Well, I don't want lions. Well, then you start messing with the ecosystem. There's all kinds of things that happen if nature has this weird, crazy, precise, massive, magnificent balance. And it's really annoying for humans because it's in our nature to build and create and grow. It's part of what we are. But those two things tend to have a problem. I love it because I think it's because God says, I expect more from you. Learn how to do it. To us, not to the animals. They don't have to learn anything. I think that you expect more from some of your kids? In certain situations? Yeah, you do. Teachers? Yeah, you do. Friends? Yes, you do. And so God says, well, you're all my children, but you're the ones that have a brain in science and technology. Figure it out. It's perfectly okay. Figure it out. Father, what we're responsible for, yes, things are going to happen. We're going to have to learn. We're learning, okay? That's what it is to be human. But we will grow and we'll figure it out. But that's what natural evil is. Lions got to eat, so something's going to get eaten. The way God compensates is he made it that little animals have lots of them so that a bunch can be eaten. That's mean, Father. No, it ain't. That's how he keeps lions. You guys, everything goes up the food chain. Well, we'll get rid of lions. Then other stuff will over-multiply and eat the vegetation. Then the vegetation will be overeaten, which means it'll cause more natural wildfires. What? Yeah, that's a thing. They figured that out in California in the wolves population. There was a policy of the National Parks Department at one point, this is 100 years ago, shoot every wolf that they could find. And they did. And they wiped out the wolf population almost to nothing. And then forest fires ripping through. And they're like, what is forest? And then somebody figured out, actually from the East Coast, flew out there and was like, oh, killing all the wolves made the deer multiply and the moose. And the moose and deer ate too much of the undervegetation. Eating too much of the undervegetation dried it. Doing that, and then when hot summers came, you have more forest fires. All of that because we thought we'd fix the problem by killing the predator. See? So yeah, deer's got to get eaten. Bye, deer. Oh, well, better you than me. What do you want me to say? That's how nature works. Okay, if anybody wants to volunteer, I'm sure there's someone to help that with that. But that's what's called natural evil, okay? Now we're going to get a little painful. I'm glad you laughed, because now I'm going to get mean. Hair. All the types of hair in the room today. Eye color. Skin color. The beauty of the face or the hand. That produces cancer. Genetic variation is what produces those things. Some of those genetic variations are lethal. I'm sorry, to make it more technical. Well, I didn't like that, Father. I told you you weren't. Sorry, kid. That's still why we call it evil. We say natural evil, and you're like, well, it's not evil. Yeah, till it hits someone you know. Then it's evil somehow. We got to call it something. You can't have one without the other. And I know I don't like either one. But you have to understand that they are, and the necessity of them is that that's how the system can work. It's the only way it can work. The fact that Earth is the distance it is from the sun and rotates around it and keeps us cool means something. If anything else gets in that rotation, we're in trouble. We'll hit it, or it'll hit us. So that means that other things cannot be that way, right? So some planets are too hot and some planets are too cold and some don't have water. All those things are limited. We don't mind because it benefits us. Well, whoa, that knife cuts on both sides. Everybody with me so far? Now, all I'm speaking about is natural evil, which is the vast minority of evil. But it is there, and I want to account for it. But before we say God shouldn't be silent, I think he would answer and say, I'm not, kid. I made it. You're here because of it. You didn't complain when I made it because it made you. And it gave you your mom. And it gave you your dad. And it gave you your brothers and sisters. But that also meant it took someone else's mom or dad or brother or sister. Well, that's not fair. It is, kid. And we're going to get into what he does with it in a minute, but there's at least a reason behind it. I'm not asking, do you like what I'm saying right now? Because I understand that's a lot to ask for. Can you understand what I'm saying? Even if you disagree, can at least you perceive what I'm saying? It stinks. It stinks, okay? But it is unavoidable because we are physically existing. We cannot, the fact that I'm here means that I'm not anywhere else. Do you get what I mean? So that means that there's limitations. Once something exists physically, it's limited because it's where it is and not where it's not. That's obvious, Father. Yeah, well, do that with genes that are healthy, and then you understand. The variation in genetics that produces all of the beautiful things in this room, that has to do that. But it's going to produce things that are dead ends, that are bad for the body that it's in. And that body might be someone you know or love. God is silent. Well, maybe, but I think it's that he's answered there. I think he's answered in the fact that he's explaining what it is. What's the other answer? Well, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 12 to 14, there's a great little phrase that they said, Moses is telling them, listen, he's getting old, he's dying, and he's like, listen. You can't tell me this anymore of where will we go to find the will of God? Who will go across the sea for us and get it? Who will go up to the heavens and climb a mountain and get it for us, or into the earth and bring it up for us? No. The law of God, you met him. He freed you from Pharaoh. He brought you all the way over here. All these miracles you've seen, the manna from heaven and all the other things that you had, he's with you. He's near and he's already in your heart. It's a beautiful phrase. What nation has a God like we have on our God that is so present to us? Remember, the people of Israel had the tent right there, the tent of the presence with a big cloud hanging over it. They could just walk over and wake up and go, I don't know if there's a God. Oh, yeah, okay. Go back to bed. And you can see. And at night it burned with fire. You could see it in day and you could see it at night. So Moses says to them, he's getting old and he's like, guys, I'm going to be gone soon. And I know that you guys are behaving because I'm around. When I'm not around, I need you to realize God's already around you. Well, how much more can we say that? St. Paul quotes Moses and says, how much more that we have the sacraments in the Eucharist. We don't have to just go see him. He's present with us. That in baptism, we have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. So long as we're in a state of grace, God dwells within us. So God answers and he's there to answer. It is a tough answer, but it is a true one. And it's at the bottom of your heart if you dig down past everything you just went through. It's there. So then what are we supposed to do about it? We're supposed to help. That's why you noticed it. That's why you noticed natural evil and it bothers us. That's why we come and move forward on it. But charity is born out of silence. Why? Because you have to quiet your own needs and distractions and fears and emotions before you can notice someone else's. You've had that in a conversation where someone's paying attention to you, or you've had it in a conversation where they're not paying attention to you. You've had it in a relationship where someone's actually about you, and you've had it in a relationship where they're not about you, it's about their needs. You've had both, and you know the difference. Your heart picks it up immediately. It's like a vibrating tune, and you know when it's ringing on the right tune or on the wrong tune. You just know it. You've had a conversation with someone that is so engrossed by you, so paying attentive to you, so focused on what you say and what you're not saying. It's so refreshing. It's so exhilarating. It's so attractive. It's so powerful. It's so amazing to hear someone listen to you, talk to you, and actually see you. Nothing like it. It's the best feeling in the world to have that conversation. You want it to go on forever. Goes on for a while, right? You don't notice the time. You're like, wait, what time is it? That's great. Heart to heart. That's the phrase. Cor ad cor locutor. Heart speaks to heart. It's a beautiful moment. Many of you from Vadis have heard me quote Blessed John Henry Newman. I think he might still be on the Facebook page. I haven't been on social media in years, so somebody make sure if it's there or not. There's a quote by him because he worked with young adults. He worked at university so much. His motto when he became a cardinal was Cor ad cor locutor. Heart speaks to heart. Because he understood that those moments, that's real fire. Well, you have to be silent for that to happen. If you're distracted, if you're in your own head, if you're lost in your own noise, then you're not listening to that person. That's why you can't listen to them properly. That's why charity dies. You want to be charitable, you have to be silent. You already are. That's what I'm telling you. Some of you are now saying, Father, I can't be silent. I bet. During the retreat, you've reached the point, okay, so this stinks. I'm just going to be quiet and wait until he tells us how to do this. I can't be silent. Yes, you can. You've done it already. Unless you're like a troll of a hideous person. then you've been silent before, because that's how you're able to relate to others. You put your noise in here off and notice their pain or their suffering or their need. And you help them. It might have been something small, like, hey, oh, you dropped that, I'll pick it up for you. Or it might be something really important, like I want to volunteer for this charity, or I want to donate to this cause, or I want to help at this cause. Everybody get what I'm trying to say here? You have to make space for other people, just the same way you make space for God in silence. You do it all the time. I know you do. You wouldn't care about your spiritual life and be on a retreat if you didn't. Maybe you don't do it enough. Sure, hey, that's all of us. Mother Teresa could have been better. Like, not by much, but she could like I'm sure she's like there's nothing on the bar, like the health bar is way up to the top. But still, in principle, we can all be more charitable. All right? But some of us have a lot of space in the health bar. Fine, but you have to be silent, because that's the only way you're going to notice the needs of another person, is by letting go of your own needs. Conversation is given it to you. Now let's get to Mother Teresa. She has that great phrase. She did write one little book. I forget the name of the book. It's just one little book she wrote. Small little thing. I think it's The Little Hearts of Love or something like that. I don't know. Look at Mother Teresa's book. I mean, it's just the one. So, I mean, not that hard to find. Anyway, but there's a lot of books about her. And she had a lot of phrases that she said often. One of them is, God is the friend of silence. That's it. It's great. I could get rid of this reflection. It's pretty good. Saying the extra little. Chuck the whole thing and just put, 5 words on this? 6 words, 7 words on it? Just we all get all brainy and go, I need more explanation. Like, what does that mean? Mother Teresa, that's part of what made her a saint. She was so pure and simple that she knew what was going down. And I know, you'll see in a second, she wasn't dumb and she wasn't weak. I'm going to give you another quote. This is by Cardinal Comastri. You can look him up. Doesn't matter. This quote will come up. It's on the Vatican website because he's kind of a big deal now. But when she died, after she died, the Vatican did a thing about how we remember her, and different people wrote things. And Cardinal Comastri wrote, when he wasn't no cardinal, when he wasn't no bishop, when he wasn't no nothing, when he was a punk, brand new priest. And he heard she was around, and he went to the convent and knocked on the door and said, I want to talk to Mother Teresa. I don't know if you figured this out, but that probably happened a lot. So the nuns were used to like, yeah, you need to keep moving, bro. You and everybody else need to talk to Mother. Go. Just not because they're mean, but because she would never get anything done. All the stuff she did. He said, I'm not leaving. He said, I made it known to the sister. You can only imagine what he said. I made it known to the sister. Yeah, Did you threaten to punch a nun? I made it known to the sister I wouldn't leave until I saw her. It was just, fine. She closed the door, went back, and a minute or two later, she's there. Mother Teresa. She brings him inside to the convent, sits him down, looks in his eyes with that ridiculously serious intensity she had. I had a chance to speak to her once, and it was terrifying. So exhilarating, but terrifying, because it's like a cannon aimed right at you. That's what it's like. It's honestly, it's right. You are the center of the universe for that moment, because she sees Christ in you. She sees Christ in you, and Christ is the center of her universe. If you thought it's exhilarating to have someone listen to you, having a saint listen to you is 10,000 times more. He said to her, I'm a young priest. I was just ordained. There's a lot of crisis in the church. This was, when a lot of people were leaving the church, and you had a lot of changes in the church, and a lot of weirdness was going on. And he was like, a lot of priests are leaving. A lot of nuns are leaving. They're taking off their habits. They're saying they're not priests anymore. I'm scared. She looked at him and said, how many hours a day do you pray? Okay, now let's stop here. I hope you caught, I think someone did, what caught my attention at that sentence. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that, Mother? Did you say hours? Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thanks. Doesn't make it better. Okay, I just wanted to see if maybe you meant something else. How many hours a day do you pray? And he said, he got nervous. Father Comastri, eventually Cardinal Comastri. Father Comastri got nervous. He stammered and he kind of, I celebrate the Mass every day, which, by the way, at the time, and even now in some way, we've healed a lot from that craziness in the church, but it is already a big deal because not all priests try to do that. I celebrate the Mass every day. I pray my breviary every day. Also, you're supposed to, by the way, but I'm saying, it's a big deal that he was. Okay, I pray the breviary every day, and I've always been attached to our Blessed Mother through the Rosary. That's a pretty good, just so we're clear, before I get to Mother's thing. That's not bad. I'd be like, that's not bad, bro. We could tweak it a bit, but I like where your head's at, okay? Let's go back to Mother. You can guess that that's not Mother's response because I'm reading this to you. Because if that was Mother's response, I wouldn't read this to you. She said, she squeezed me by the hands, looked me in the eyes and said, that is not enough. Love doesn't do the minimum. Love does the maximum. Ouch. You still want to see mother? So all I thought, I was reading, I was like, that's what you get. The nun said, you should keep it moving. You should have kept it moving. Listen to the nuns. They're like, you need to keep moving. Okay, because that is not enough. He got nervous, he gets embarrassed, and he says something like, he says, mother, I thought you would ask me how many hours I dedicate to charity and to serving the poor. And she opened her clear eyes and looked at him and said, charity? Love the poor more. And she holds his hands, leans in close. And this is a direct quote. The rest of this, he changes different stories. He tells it in different ways at different times. But this one is every time he says the story, this is the details that he described. This quote, burned into his mind, I guess. My child, without God, we are too poor to be able to help the poor. Remember, I am only a poor woman who prays. When I pray, God puts his love into my heart, and so I can love the poor by praying. It stayed with him, half a century later, or whatever it was, since it happened? And she'd passed away, and he was an archbishop, he was this, then it was this, then it was this, and he was a cardinal. And he wrote that in the thing about memories of her. But he shared it many times before. You want to help people. You recognize natural evil. You want to help them. You've got to be silent to recognize their evil. And you've got to be silent to their needs, the evil in their needs. You know what I mean? And you've got to be silent so that then God can fill you up so you can help others. Are you with me so far? Or at least do you understand? I know this gets uncomfortable. It's going to get more uncomfortable. Now, let's look at moral evil. Moral evil is often what we mean when we really say, I want to talk about God and silence and evil. But now I bet your mind and your heart are in the right direction, and this is a little bit easier for you. In C.S. Lewis's book, The Problem of Evil, The Problem of Pain, I brought it. He's talking about evil. He just calls it pain because he said that's more real. Evil is this nebulous thing. Let's call it pain. The problem of pain, he says, most evil, and he's right. He says something like 80% of evil is moral evil, not natural evil. He starts with moral evil and then he moves to natural evil. But he says, before you blame God for stuff, realize that the vast majority of suffering in the world is caused by man. That's true. Hunger, caused by man. No, Father, people don't have food. There's food. There's food, ridiculous amounts of food. And that's before the modern engineering of food that we can now do, where we can produce food. That's ridiculous. We pay farmers not to grow food, ladies and gentlemen. We pay them not to grow food. We've been doing it for a long time, maybe half a century. Okay? That's just in this country. That's not Russia, who also has huge tracts of arable land, or Canada, or China, who have huge tracts of arable land. Those four countries, you want to throw Brazil in there, you probably got the largest countries in the world, probably got most of the world right there covered. And any one of those can feed a large chunk of the world. If I remember correctly, the last time I looked it up, America, if we were able to use the maximum amount of land and did it, we could produce food for 60% of the world. America. Just America. Just so you can hear the eagle scream in the distance. That's America by itself. Now add Russia, which is bigger, and Canada, which is bigger, and China, which is bigger, and all have huge tracts of arable land, right? Farmable land. Don't tell me hunger is God caused by God. Not cool, not fair. We can blame God for what we got to blame him. Don't blame him for that. War, don't even start. That's not God. That's us. Genocide. It's different than war, but it still kills. Abuse, murder, those are all man-made. And the vast majority of human suffering is man-made. Crime is man-made. Man does this. And we do this to each other and we do this to God. So why is God silent? Well, man does it. Why are we asking God? Do you know, Pope Benedict XVI pointed out something, and I remember reading it, and it was like he hit me in the face, because I never thought of it. Because the problem of evil is a very famous philosophical problem. It's old as dirt, literally. It's old as the word dirt, older than the word dirt, right? English didn't exist when we came up with that problem. It's old. And Benedict XVI said, yeah, but for the first time ever, man is really in the upside down direction. Talk about weird. Instead of saying we need to justify ourselves to God, and how do we stand in front of God, and how do we appear to God, and how do we tell God to justify himself to us. What? I don't know about you, but the first time I read that, it had genuinely never occurred to me. Ever. You know when you had an idea that's just brand new? You're just like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm asking God to justify himself to me. And the best part is the majority of the stuff that I'm asking him to justify himself for, he didn't do. Well, why is war? Well, that's us. If I'm a thief, you can't call my father and say, why is your son a thief? My father may feel responsible. He's wrong to feel so. I'm a grown man. I have free will. But it's really wrong to ask him to explain himself. And yet, for the vast majority of suffering in the world, we say to God, where are you? Where were you when this happened? He's going to go, I was right there, telling them to stop. The problem of man-made evil, moral evil, is man-made. Now I can ask you the question, can you understand evil? We started with, let's explain evil. I would say, can you really understand it? Did you even approach it the right way? Was your head upside down? Well, what about natural evil? How about all those diseases and earthquakes and hurricanes and floods? Already took care of that. God is the victim of evil just as much. Nope. God is the victim of evil more than us. Why does he allow it? Because we have free will. We'll get into evil in a second. Wait a minute. Let's get back into how do we understand evil. Look, can you understand evil is a genuine question. You can, but I think most of us are thinking of it the wrong way. It's not your fault. You're not trained for it. I was, and I still get it wrong sometimes. Evil, okay, what I'm going to say is sound weird. Evil is not a thing. Evil is a lack of something. Evil is not a thing. Okay, so you see that right there? For those of you who are listening, I'm pointing up. Look up at your ceiling. You probably have a light bulb on it. Okay, see that? That's called a light bulb. Why is there not a dark bulb? You see? Why is there not something like a dark light, flash dark? Something I can turn on to make darkness. Why not? Because light is a thing. Darkness is a non-thing. It's an absence of light. Do you understand? Evil is an absence of good. It is not a thing. It is the lack of what should be there. You see, when I said, can you understand evil? Of course I can understand it. It's all over the place. Can you? Did you think of it that way? Heat, right? Cold. Cold is not a thing. Cold is a lack of heat. Well, yeah, but there's machines that make cold, but only because they suck the heat out of what's there. You got me? There are a few things like that. This room, how come I can't? Why can't science create a flash dark? I could shine it and it would be a black, cool. By the way, I would never get work done because I would sit there and wave it around. Are you kidding me? Please stop it. I'd quit stuff way faster for less than that. That would be the coolest thing ever made. Just sit there and wait. What are you doing, Father? Leave me alone. Give him a dark light. Flash dark. Look, I can't even say it right. Because the idea is so bizarre and stupid and silly and funny because it's obviously impossible. But you hadn't thought of it until someone points it out to you. Evil is a lack of good. We create the majority of evil by blocking out God. And then we turn and say, why are you blocked out? That's a fight. Forgive my lack of eloquence, but that's a fight. You treat me like that. You do something to me and then you be like, why you did that? I'm going to punch you. I'm going to hit you because I'm going to lose my temper. Because I'm going to go, how dare you? You did this to me. And then you said, why'd you here? You didn't invite me. You didn't show up. I'm going to get mad. I may rise above it. I may. But my instinct is going to go, you're going to get some words from me. You're lucky I'm not there now because I'm going to give you some words. But that's what we do. We say, God, why are you not there? And we don't want him. Well, I didn't say I didn't want him. You're right. Maybe someone else did. And you're the victim of that evil. Can you control that other person? You see, you and I have been walking through theodicy, evil, the problem of evil. And now I can point back to some of the things that we started with and go, did you really see what you thought you saw? Look again. Can you really control another person's evil? It's a lack of something. If they don't want God, then they won't have God. That's why I started with dryness. If they've lost God in their life, for a moment or for months or for years, then how can they have him? God, now I'm going back to a point that I mentioned before, God suffers from evil more than we do. Not as much, more. How can God suffer more than me? Anybody here have someone they love that suffered? Then you know how God can suffer more than you. A mother suffers more than a child when a child is suffering. Mother suffers way more than a child. A mother has a child that's suffering, and she is suffering infinitely more because she knows what's going on. She understands. See, the kid just cries, and that breaks her heart because he doesn't understand. So that makes her hurt more. You know what I'm talking about, even with silly suffering. Breaks my heart to see little kids get injections. Damn it. And it's not a bad suffering. It's going to save their life. They're fat little arms, and they look at you, and I don't want to be there. I'm going to go wait in the car. Go. What? It's not my kid. I never do that, but that's one of the times I do that. I'll take care of a crying, screaming, angry, evil kid and love that kid and fix that kid. I will. But a kid who feels betrayed, nah, that's your kid. Sorry, I'm a priest. I will invoke priestly celibacy at that moment. I don't do it when a kid's bad because you can fix, you can reach, you can try. But a kid who's suffering and feels betrayed, oh, dude, nope. Looking in their eyes when they look at you, ugh. Because when they're, what is it, 2 months, they get that first set of shots. They may or may not know to look at you. It still breaks your heart. But when they're a little older, when they're 2 years, 18 months, and they got to get that for the second set of shots, they know what's going on. You're the good guy. You're the person who keeps me safe. What the hell, bruh, is what they're looking at. But they don't understand enough to say it, and they can't explain it to them. They don't know why they're supposed to get it. A mom suffers way more than a kid. She feels like a failure. She feels like she's incompetent. A father feels like he's failed as a man and as a father because he didn't protect his child from pain. And you tell me and you ask me why God suffers more in evil than we do? If you think I'm supposed to keep my kid safe from evil and evil happens to your kid and it hurts you, what do you think God feels like who's almighty? He's horrified. What can he do? He stands with you. If you let him in. Unfortunately, evil is infectious. And so I do evil to someone, they get angry and they do evil back. And so they push God out. Remember, evil's not a thing, it's a lack of something. So now they push God out. Can you imagine the horror and eternal heartbreak of God now? When we go through evil and we go, I'm going to be evil back. Why doesn't God stop it? Because of free will. But also, now I can give you something else. We finished the last talk on a really happy note of death. Do you remember? I thought it was happy. We finished on it because now I think you now know what else God can do. And he loves doing it. And in fact, now that you'll know it, you'll recognize it all the time in your life. You ready? God loves, his favorite thing to do maybe, is to bring good out of evil. He does it all the time. Takes something, transforms it. Takes dirt, transforms it into man. Takes something temporal like man and transforms it into something eternal because we have an eternal soul. Takes some wool and a part of a habit that Carmelites wears and makes a scapular. Takes some beads and some string and makes a rosary. He loves doing it. Takes bread and wine and makes it his presence. He takes the worst thing man has ever done, kill God, and makes it good. We call it Good Friday in English. And he brings out salvation. It's actually a pattern that's happened in your life all the time. You had a kid? What do you think he did with your pain? Brought out good from it. Some kids, some parents, right? The only thing good from that relationship was the children. Everything else stunk. And they come to me and go, Father, I messed up. And I go, well, you got something good out of it. I go, you got the only thing good out of it. Matter of fact, you got an eternal good out of it. One of those kids' grandkids might be the president one day. Might cure cancer. All out of that. God loves pulling something good out of evil. He can't stop our free will. Why can't he? Well, in the ontological, theological sense, can he? Yes, he can. He can do anything he wants. He limits himself because he respects our free will too much. But what he can do is pull out good from it. And he does it all the time. It's literally one of his favorite things. His favorite thing is to rush in at the last minute. Open any page of the Bible and you realize he loves doing that. He loves swooping in. You're like, you miss me? And he grabs you and he saves you. He's like the Han Solo of the creation. He just loves at the last minute. If you don't know that, read it, watch it. Pay attention, you'll see. That's what he really loves. But his second favorite thing, I think, is pulling good out of evil. And it makes sense. It's eminently reasonable. Think about it. He can't stop our will because he said he wouldn't. Fine. Doesn't mean I can't help. Doesn't that sound like your naughty but good friend? Don't you have a mischievous friend that's like, all right, I can't make you get good, but I'll trick you into being good. Are you kidding me? That's exactly what God would do. There's no question that's what he would do. You go, all right, I can't stop you, but I can save you. Oops, I forgot to call the cops. Sorry, guess you're safe. Like, are you kidding? That's exactly what God does all the time. Think about how much good he's brought out of natural evil. Whoa, Father, I don't know about that. Yeah? How many people have turned and dedicated their lives to service of man because of natural evils? Earthquakes and storms. How many people, sometimes maybe the only thing that unites a country is when there's a natural disaster in that country. I don't want the natural disaster, and God didn't want it either. It's part of the system that he built to make the earth run. But he then inspires all these people to stop fighting each other and go, oh, wait, we got to go help these things. Can he bring good out of moral evil? Yeah, he does it all the time. Even in that, the stupidest example. I'm going to give you the most stupid, trash, hood example ever of good out of moral evil. But I think if it can come out of them, then you can get. There's a famous picture somewhere of like a blue, a goofball loser, gang member holding a blue handkerchief and another goofball loser gang member holding a red handkerchief. And the handkerchiefs are tied together and they're walking through the streets covered in hood. Because the Bloods and the Crips decided to stop fighting each other during some of the riots or something like that. In, I guess, Baltimore. If I remember, it's not that long ago. It's a couple years ago, whatever it was. You look it up, and they walk with I wanted to like kill myself from insanity. But when I got over the fact that we're just living in a weird, crazy parallel universe that I don't know who made up. This can't be the real world. But what did it do? It caused them to say, wait, we have to stop doing this. And they stopped. They tried to stop being horrific people and be slightly less horrific people. But they did. Out of moral evil. And I picked the worst example I can think of because if that can happen, then you know tons of others that can come up. How many people dedicated their lives to solving moral evils? We're going to stop drunk driving. We're going to stop smoking that gives cancer. We're going to stop, people that abuse of kids. We're going to stop. Are you kidding me? Look, Hollywood and DC, Washington DC are full of jerks and weirdos and psychos. Fine. But a bunch of those jerks, weirdos, or psychos actually have pretty cool charities that they do, like they try. At least ostensibly. They're like, I have a charity for some serious stuff. Like you got here like charities for like abused kids or like abandoned kids or like reading or hunger. Look at that. Out of the moral evil of what was done to those kids, somebody thought, hey, we got to do something about this. Do you get what I'm trying to say? God is not silent in the face of evil. You just maybe weren't listening the right way. There is no situation so evil that God can't bring something good out of it. However, and this is my severe warning to you, there is no situation so good and so evil that you cannot make it worse. There is no situation so evil that you cannot make it better. But you need to keep that in mind. Why? Because a lot of us see evil and we need to stand up and fight it. Be very, very thoughtful about what you're doing when you do that. There is no situation so bad you can't make it worse. Silence is not a passive thing. If you haven't figured that out, then you've managed to be perfectly silent this weekend at any point you wanted to. This is my doubt face. If you struggled with silence, then you realize it takes more than just being quiet. There's a mastery of self that happens when you are silent, even if it's for a couple seconds. Well, when you do that, you sharpen yourself. You make yourself stronger. You make yourself be more guided by God. So that you deal with the moral or the natural evil, but you do it the right way so you don't make it worse. What do I mean by making it worse? Oh, anything? Come on, seriously? How many people do something and they try to help someone and they make it worse? Are you kidding? All the time? Story of humanity? I don't even know. I'll pick an example. I'm hesitant to pick one to not embarrass someone. Not here, but in the universe. Was that goofball that published the list of women that have been assaulted sexually? And she was running for office, Arizona, I think? Maniac posted a list of published it, a list of all the women who've been, without anybody's permission, and not checking if some of those women had not been assaulted. We're going to help. Everybody pretty much says that cost her the election. She lost. She was running for Senate. I think it was Arizona. Cost her the election. She was already like losing a little bit, but they were like, what did you just do? Why did you put this women's private? What is that possibly going to help those women? First of all, how does that help those women? Now everybody knows they've been sexually assaulted. How does that help those women? 1. 2, did you check if they wanted to? Maybe they wanted to, fine, as like solidarity or something. I don't know, fine. Did you check? No, they didn't. And a bunch of the women posted and came out and said, she didn't check with me. I didn't want to be public. And a bunch of the women said, I was never sexually assaulted. I don't even know what they're talking about. So you got that. That's trying to help and making it worse. I don't want to pick anything more specific because I don't want to, but there you go. So you got to think. You have to pause. You have to be silent, truly silent, even if it's only for a half a second. Then make your decisions about how to help. It matters. When you are silent, well, why should I do that? Well, because Jesus said so. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. I warn you, if you're going to meditate on that one, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's the parable of the wheat and the weeds. It's a parable. The parable is a story Jesus tells to teach a lesson. So it's not a true story. He tells a story about a guy who plants some wheat, right, in his field, and his enemy comes and plants weeds in the field that night. And then runs away. And the master of the field says, let them both grow. Let them both grow, the good and the bad. Let them both grow. Because if we try to cut them now, we're going to hurt the good. They're too little and they're mixed in with each other. Let them both grow. When the time comes, we will have the harvest of all of them and we will separate the good from the bad. And the good we will keep in the barns and the bad will burn in eternal fire. He's talking about the end of the world. He says it. This is about the end of the world. Just so we're... Father's interpreting. No. Hey, let me tell you a story about the end of the world. There's a parable. Okay, just so we're clear. Let them grow. See? So be careful before you go, we have to stop. Stop. Are you going to hurt the innocent by trying to get the guilty? Be very careful. It's very easy to do that. And it's wrong. Let them grow. Why? Because he says, I will handle it. At the end of time, the angels of heaven will go forth and harvest all of humanity. That's literally the rest of this parable. And they will take the good and bring them into my Father's house, and the evil will burn in fires. Literally, that's the rest of the parable, okay? So yeah, patience with evil is the right way to handle it. So be careful also, because if you think you can do better, understand that you are echoing the words of Adam and Eve. Not in a good moment. I can do better. Remember? You want to be like gods? Yeah, that's it. That's why silence is important. When you see, even in the face of evil, it's not easy. Try. You'll see how hard it is to be silent in the face of evil. Remember what I said? That's why we did the biblical thing first. Then when they were lying about Jesus in front of the Sanhedrin, when Pontius Pilate was interested in Jesus, but he was getting it wrong, and when Herod was bored by Jesus, he remained silent in front of all of them. He knew things would get done how they needed to get done. So be careful that it's not a lack of trust in God. Now, does that mean we should do nothing? Absolutely not. You need to do something, but make sure that you are sharpening yourself. I mean that. Think of yourself as a sword in God's hand being sharpened. When you're in silence and in prayer, he's sharpening you. When he nets you to work, you'll work. When you know the moral issue is clear, when you know that you'll be able to act on something properly, then do so, fine. But if it's done out of a preparation of spirituality, then you'll do it well. If you do it wrongly, you're going to hurt the innocent. You'll have joined the evil that you hate. And I can't think of a worse punishment than just being part of the evil you hate. That's why silence matters in the face of evil. It's not that it's allowed or not allowed. It's necessary. Preparation and silence and prayer is necessary because you will run in and hurt the first innocent person you find in your zeal, in your crazed energy, in your desire to be like God, to be better than God and to do what you want to do because you know better. Wait, be patient. God will give you the time and the strength, but you have to make sure you give him the right person. You're the right person for it, that you're the right person. Give him the right person by being it. Now, the reflection is on maturing spirituality. It's a letter. It's from a letter of, if you could pass these out, St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits. Now, at this time when the letter was written, actually these were written even before that point, but the letter as it was written down, these rules, these suggestions, not rules. They didn't have rules for the Jesuits. They were just starting off, so they were just a bunch of dudes trying to do the right thing. And the rules will come later. Right? And so they were like, well, how do we do this? I don't know. We'll just kind of live right and we'll do the right thing, right? When Vadis as a group was founded, I didn't want us to have a name. I didn't want us to have rules. They were like, well, we're meeting and we'll figure it out. We were like, but Father, wait, we don't even know what we are. Let's just figure it out and then we'll come up with rules. So we had principles and theory, ideas of how we should behave, but let's keep it to a minimum. And then once we know what we are, then we can come together and pick a name. We picked a name. We made some statutes. We did those things, but take some time. Figure out who you are first. So these were some of the suggestions and principles that he'd given. And it's for young men that have been studying for the priesthood, but they're moving, they're deepening, they're trying to mature in their spiritual life. So I thought it would be a nice group of, I don't know, something like 12 principles just to look at. So you have this. Again, these are only a suggestion. If it's appropriate to your spiritual life and it's helping you, then go for it. If it's junk, chuck it. Don't even think about it. All right? Now, we have